That spark of innovation, it's just waiting for the perfect combination of tools and talent to bring it to life. Welcome to Pitch, Build, Scale. I'm your host, Chris Fanchi, a recovering startup founder, veteran SaaS marketer, turned dev tech enthusiast and growth specialist. Each episode, we connect with the builders, the visionaries, and the problem solvers who are redefining what's possible with today's technology and pioneering the websites, apps, and software products of tomorrow. These are the conversations that transform how we build, how we sell, and how we scale technology businesses in a world where the tech evolves by the minute. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? This is Pitch, Build, Scale. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're Big North Marketing and specialize in helping dev shops and SaaS companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your SaaS or dev business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. We're excited to have today's guest, Ken Winell, Senior Management and Technology Professional and co-founder of Nexus Digital Group. Ken has worn just about every hat in the tech world, from defense contractor to CTO of Tough Mudder and the Robin Hood Foundation, and now runs a lean consultancy focused on helping companies build their AI roadmap, deploy agentic technologies, and disrupt entire industries. Whether it's life sciences, retail, or supply chain, Ken and his team help enterprises move fast and smart with cutting-edge innovation. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So Ken, let's start out with this. You've had a remarkably diverse career, from government and nonprofits to consumer tech and now strategic consulting. What's been the through line across all of those experiences?
That's a great question. And, the common thread, I think, is that technology change is a constant. I'll play that back for, for rewind purposes. Technology is moving at a pace that we've never seen before. The velocity of adoption and things that happen, I go all the way back to, when cell phones first really hit the masses and we saw wide adoption. You one day you didn't have a phone, the next day everybody had a phone, right? And we saw the same thing happen with .com and the internet in early 2000. And, everybody had to have a website. Everybody had to have an I in front of their business name or an E in front of their business name. And then in November of 2022, everything exploded again, this time with AI. And now you can't utter anything without talking artificial intelligence. So that is the common thread. If you pull on just that and say technology change, right, you would unravel everything else, because that's what's evolving. And that's obviously my passion as well.
So let's go back to the beginning then. Tell me a little bit about how you got into technology and how you turned it into a career, what the stops were like, and what was that journey like?
Well, I don't know if your viewers really want to go down that sordid history, but I'll give you the short version. I was always tinkering as a kid. I loved taking stuff apart, putting it back together, starting with my father's stereo and eventually going to there was a company called Heathkit, where you used to get a television and you could build your own television, and it taught you electronics and, all kinds of weird stuff. Anyway, I was very geeky about that as a little kid. And then when I went into the Air Force, right after I spent 2 years in college and then decided that I wanted to get a more structured route. So I went into the Air Force and I got trained in electrics and electronics. And then really that became my passion. And I decided to pursue a degree in electrical engineering. And so once I got that formal, logical, structured process under my belt, I was able to think a little more analytically. And as I transitioned into looking at more robust solutions, instead of looking at, hey, I want to take apart a TV. Now it's like, hey, I wonder how broadcast really works. And hey, I really want to know and understand how to get the transmission in the air. Start decoupling and really deconstructing things from the ground up. And that led me to a whole world of different opportunities. And then I got into corporate communications and understanding how companies thrive and businesses scale with processes, standard operating procedures. And I started building solutions that serve that. And that led to retail, that led to wholesale, it led to all kinds of different things about learning the businesses. And each step of the way, I was designing solutions. And that's how I got to where we are today with strategic consulting and Nexus Digital.
Okay. So what was that? You talk about AI was kind of the instigator, the thing that set you off on Nexus Digital. What did you see? What pain point in the market or gap in the market did you see that made you decide this is the direction we need to go in 2022?
That's a great question. I think I've formed an opinion over many years that businesses in general, especially small and mid-sized businesses, which is where Nexus Digital has played a lot at the enterprise level, not as much. They don't invest in technology because they're not sure if this technology is going to pay off for them. And there's this fear of well, I'm not going to do it till everybody else is doing it. And I think what AI did for me, at least back when ChatGPT first became available, I said, this is natural language processing. This gives someone an ability to actually talk to the computer in a way that they understand, not that the computer understands, that they understand. And you get back reasonable results. And I said, that's a paradigm shift. That's something that's going to change. My famous story is all I ever learned. I learned from Star Trek and watching television. And so when a Spock or Kirk are saying, "Hey, computer," and the computer responds and gives you this very robotic voice, it's now a much more naturalized conversation. You don't know that you're talking to AI, and that stark difference of just from my own mindset of what a computer engaged conversation would sound like to where it is today made such a difference to understand. It's like, wow, we got to be in this because everybody's going to want this. This is the next wave. So yeah, I got on board early.
So you've been through several of these technology shifts in your career. You mentioned cell phones, obviously, even just the internet becoming ubiquitous. And it seems like that change is usually it's gradual and then sudden, right? Does it feel like this AI has been different, has been faster than those previous times, or do you feel like it kind of always goes in a similar cycle?
AI is on crack. I don't know how to describe it other than that. The velocity that it's being adopted and the way that people have embraced it and are still fearful of it. And there's a lot of risks and things that are still out there and unanswered questions, but it is a transformative change. It is something that is so vastly different than what we're used to. I think people are still not even aware of just how pervasive it's going to become over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think we've yet to tap we're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what this thing can deliver. When you start merging AI with robotics and you start looking at humanoid robots doing, mundane tasks or making pizza or, serving drinks, I think those are all realistic possibilities. And again, I go back to life imitates art. I mean, things that we saw on Star Trek and even the Jetsons, are taken for norm now. And it's fascinating to me that this has all come to fruition over the past 25, 30 years. And you start seeing these things. But let's go even further back, 50 years when Star Trek, 1968, right? When Star Trek was out. I mean, the fact that people could foresee it and now it's reality, it boggles the mind. And I only think about, hey, as a futurist, what's next? What's behind that? And then you start thinking about some of these other things that are not there yet. And you're like, wow, that's 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road. No, it could always be 5 years down the road. These innovations are coming. The Neuralink and some of the things that are happening at the chip level where you can embed things into a human being where you could act, for payment purposes, like imagine just having your fingertip and just hit the button and it's paid out of your account. I mean, those are realities that people will want to pay for that convenience. And I think the sky's the limit as far as that goes. What I worry about is the downside to that, which is that the isolation at the individual level, that we become so dependent on these machines that we have little or no interaction with other humans. And I think that's a problem. So again, I'm cautious about it, but I'm very optimistic about what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm very much in that same category. I think there are a lot of people that look at it and still kind of see AI as a bit of a parlor trick. Like it's not really intelligence. It's just cobbling together things using probabilities and statistics, but it isn't able to think, isn't able to reason.
Right.
But I think
Until it
we're
until it achieves artificial general intelligence, which is not that far off. And then there's super intelligence, right? So there's
totally.
artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence, and then there's God knows what after that. But the AG I think is realistic where it becomes reasoning. The models that are being tested now, like ChatGPT 4.5 and some of the Gemini models that are out there, do allow a little more progressive reasoning. And I think we're starting to see that. But you're absolutely right. These are simple, as I tell people all the time, when you're talking to AI, you're talking to a brilliant 10-year-old. You're not talking to Albert Einstein. You're talking to somebody who has all the knowledge about Einstein, but has to be talked to as though they're 10 years old. When we can get to a conversation where you're talking to an equal or somebody who's actually got more intelligence than you, then that changes the whole conversation. And I think we're not there yet, but I think it's coming down the pike very soon.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand the snowball effect that we're seeing.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it may seem like we're still in the early stages, but the speed is just picking up at an incredible pace.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch, and you look at the players that are out in the world today, like Nvidia and their graphics chips, of what's happening there, and you look for disruptions like what DeepSeek did a couple of months ago. There are just so many variables in play here, but I could say with certainty that it is an exciting time to watch this happening.
Yeah, I mean, just last week there's a study came out claiming that one of ChatGPT's models or OpenAI's models actually passed the Turing test, which is pretty mind-boggling. And then you've got Facebook or Meta just released a new model with a 10 million token context window, which is just mind-boggling. And for people that don't understand what that means, that's the amount of information that it can understand and take into context when making commentary or decisions or thinking through
Yeah.
things, right?
I think it's important to even differentiate and say, distinguish to folks that you don't need to know what's under the covers. Like that's the whole point, is that it has become repeatable enough and reliable enough that you no longer have to understand, hey, how many tokens do I need to perform this operation? You might want that from a cost standpoint if you're building a SaaS model, right? But you don't need that to be a user. And you don't need that to be a buyer or purchaser of a service. That's the difference, is understanding those segmentations.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that was all people talked about a year ago or even 6 months ago, and now those conversations aren't really there. It's not even a concern.
No,
Maybe
it's
that's
how many
the
agents do you
DeepSeek
have? How
effect,
many agents
partially.
do you have? How many
Yeah.
agents do you have? That's everybody's question. Oh, you're doing agentic technology? Somebody added IC on the back of agent, and all of a sudden now that's the new buzzword. It's like, okay, got it, understand. All it really is that you're breaking down the functionality of AI, so it's no longer this big monolithic thing, and you're breaking it into these little tiny components that could do all the repeatable tasks and roll them out to the other AI engines, and you can basically become self-sustaining. So those are good things. But again, it's understanding you're basically working with Lego building blocks as opposed to one big model. And that's the universal descriptor that I like to provide.
Yeah. In our previous conversation, you mentioned you used the term verticalizing the horizontalness of AI. Can you kind of break that down, explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I can expand on that. It's one of my favorite topics. So AI today, there are a multitude of things, and I'm not going to pick on any one, but if you want a large language model for insurance, you're going to train it on insurance claims, on what's a process, whatever your standard procedures are. And that model is going to give you highly reliable results because you're training it just on those unique parameters. The same thing goes for medical. The same thing goes for consumer, right? And understanding buying habits and all that stuff. We've done a couple of AI tools for skin analysis for dermatologists that basically is more accurate than a dermatology exam and the likelihood of a cancerous activity. All those things are there. So I think what we're starting to see is AI as a horizontal and the language, a large language model that has trained on millions of records that is able to take natural language processing and give you results in an organized fashion. That's the horizontal. The verticality of it is, what industry are we focusing on, and where are the data points coming from, and what am I training it on? And, we're starting to see bifurcation and even beyond that of companies that are training horizontal models because they want to be everything to everybody, but they need the verticality to understand the specifics of what someone's asking them. So Amazon, for example, which is a great example, can't do verticality to any one of their categories because they have to do it to every one of their categories. And that's a challenge, obviously, because they sell everything from A to Z. When you start thinking about that, that's why we tell and advise our clients, it's like, okay, be good at what you do, make sure you're good at what you do, and then you can expand beyond that if there's new categories and areas of business that you want to pursue. But let's make sure we get the first part locked down first.
Hmm. Hmm. So let's use this opportunity to pivot a little bit more into the business side of things.
Sure.
So as you're presenting these solutions, or you're going to potential clients, prospects, or even your existing clients to talk about what's new, what's coming up, Where is the understanding on the business side? Do they understand what you're working with? Are they asking for things that are realistic? Are they asking for things that are too simplistic or too advanced? Like where's the general understanding that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's really good. I think the way I like to phrase it is I don't talk to clients with a solution in search of a problem, right? AI is not a solution in search of a problem. AI is a tool set that can be made to deal with many problems or made to deal with just one, but you have to really define what it is you're looking to do. Strategically, we tell clients, look, don't even think about AI from the word AI that you have to have it. Like, let's look at your business. Let's understand what you're doing. Do you have customer service? Yes. Okay. How many people are answering the phone in your customer service group? Okay, 15? Okay, great. And how busy are those 15 folks? Well, they're 80% occupied or they're 90% occupied, or we have, very high customer turnover because they're not satisfied with our customer service. Perfect example, any cable company out there, right? Any cable company that's out there has lousy customer service.
Mhm.
So you might look at AI and say, hey, we can improve your customer service by adding a chatbot that covers 80% of your tier one questions. Hey, my TV won't turn on. Okay, and there used to be a great British TV show called The IT Crowd, where the first three questions were always the same. It's like, is your computer plugged in? Is there power to the computer? Can you hit Control Alt Delete? Right? Those are the things that you would ask, as any IT person knows and grimaces. Okay, whatever. Those are the kind of things that AI does really, really well and can deliver good results for. So I could take those 15 people, and now I only need to have 5 of them who answer tier 2 questions, and the other 10 can be reallocated for other parts of the business. So when you have a conversation, and typically we want to have the conversation with the C-level folks in a company. We don't want to go down to a director or an IT director. And there's no offense, I don't mean to offend them, but it's literally they're not involved in the decision-making process at a strategy level, right? You have to understand, I'm telling the owner of a business, we can reduce by 2/3, right, your customer service staff by replacing that with a chatbot. And at the same time, I'm not saying get rid of those folks. I'm saying we can reallocate them. They can become outside sales professionals. They can, help you in the warehouse. They can do whatever they need to do for your other areas of the business. And let's keep going. So that's just one example. What's next? Oh, supply chain. Oh, what's next? Beyond that. So you really have to approach it in a methodical way. We do what we call our discovery, which is a very fast, rapid acceleration of coming in, immersing ourselves with maybe, I don't know, anywhere from 40 to 100 questions about a business to determine where AI could plug in. And we give you a result in short order, probably a week is the most we spend on discovery. And we give you a roadmap because those are the kind of things that people want. They want to understand, hey, you don't have to do this all today. You could do this in a week. You could do this in a month. You could do this in 2 years. But let's at least know and understand how AI can impact your business and what we expect the return on the investment would be. Those are the two answers that we try to go in with. Nothing more.
Yeah, and I've noticed that seems to be more common with sales development right now. Business development is wanting to speak directly to the top level management. And I think that's because of the AI tools and the solutions. The solutions are becoming more broad and more capable of handling multiple parts of the business. You don't have to get down to the specialists nearly as much to be able to talk about solutions for specialized problems.
Right. And I mean, listen, there are always going to be, people that are out there that are working on very large SQL databases, or they're working on, master data management, or, insights and analytics. Yeah, those are very technical questions. Yes, AI can be used. If you have Tableau and you've got experts on Tableau and they're writing all these reports and, they're doing things and you want to use AI for that, of course you can reduce some time there and you can improve things. But as you said, that doesn't require a C-level conversation. The C-level conversation is much more strategic, and the tactical side of things, yes, you could deal with that as well, but it depends on the nature of the business. And again, it goes back to, what do you want to get done with AI? Like, you can't just wake up in the morning and say, I think I need AI today, right? Okay, why? Tell me why you need AI. What's it going to do for you? If you can't answer that, then don't talk to me. You're not ready to have that discussion.
So back to my previous question then. So what is the understanding that you're finding in terms of these executives and what they know that AI is capable of? Are they in the right ballpark? Do they have an accurate understanding, or are they more familiar with just the buzzwords and they want you to show them the details?
I think well, again, I'm going to limit myself to mid-sized businesses and not go for the enterprise players who are reading, the McKinsey reports every day. I would say most business executives today understand the concept of AI. They don't understand the details of it. And what they like to hear from somebody like myself is, hey, look, I don't have to know AI like the back of my hand. I don't have to live like Ken, but I need somebody like Ken to help me understand how I can leverage AI in the business. And that's our real value proposition, is that we can come in and help you understand how to leverage it in your business without necessarily being in your business. And I think those are the things that most CEOs appreciate. When you get down to it, and it's always between the CEO, the CFO, or the chief revenue officer, right? It's one of the three. And the revenue officer is saying, hey, if I can grow my sales by 20% using AI efficiently, that's going to get me a bonus at the end of the year. The CEO is saying, hey, if I have a liquidity event because my company is now optimized with AI and I'm lean and mean and I'm making more money because my margins improved, you know, that's attractive to them. And you really have to just be able to take them through that. And I think that's that, but to your point, I think a lot of people I don't know what I don't know. I need somebody to educate me, and I'm not going to invest and go to a couple of seminars, and I'm not going to go to Code Academy and learn how to write prompt engineering. I just need someone to explain it to me. And so that's, a value proposition that we like to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you identifying your prospective clients? I know you've worked with a lot of different industries. What to you is a signal that this industry or client is ripe for the AI tools and disruption?
Well, there's a few things. So we participate in a number of different industry or cross industry events, and we hear about stuff from companies like mentoring programs like Vistage and Score, where they're dealing with the C-level folks and trying to help them scale, grow, and there's a motive there, so to speak. We are getting interest from, simply just doing thought leadership, where we do these webinars with people like yourself. We publish articles, we, talk about it. We also are well known in certain circles, especially in life sciences and in consumer retail and packaged goods, where, we've got some fairly big players that we can use as references to say, oh, work with these guys because they brought us in. And, it's a me too, not the negative side of me too, but it's a me too. Hey, these guys used you, so I can use you. And so you have a little bit of a pedigree there. I think it's a combination of all that. And then it's literally just being in the right place at the right time. You need to have someone, if you have an inside sales team, someone making phone calls and saying, hey, are you interested? There's nothing wrong with that. Old fashioned selling still works. We still use LinkedIn. We still go out to events. We still host them. But I think in general now we've built up enough credibility. The word of mouth is starting to get out. We're starting to get more leads coming in organically. We have a website, but honestly, the shoes of the fisherman, we don't, we don't really invest a lot of money in paid search or SEO right now because AI actually does a good job for us. So we know what we're doing there. But yeah, I think the ability to build your business on AI opportunities is just because we are at the tip of the iceberg right now, and it's about to, pivot. I think get even bigger in 2026.
So you think we're not quite at the tipping point where there's that real FOMO, if you will, the fear of missing out from these executives, that if they don't act immediately, they're going to fall behind?
I would say we're at the beginning stages of FOMO right now. I think by mid-June, that will grow and intensify. Now, if you look at what's happening politically in the country, around the world, actually, supply chain disruption, tariff calculations, et cetera, to be more timely about it, these are all elements that will push the drive for AI even more. The ability to anticipate tariff change, the ability to redirect and reroute and come up with least cost routing for your supply chain, materials costs, et cetera, even currency exchange. These are all elements that will start to really be excited over the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
It's
very,
scary,
very
but it's
interesting.
yeah. I'm glad I'm on this side of it and not on the other side of it, because I think if you're reacting to it, you're panicking. And I think a lot of businesses that are out there are worried, if especially if there's an economic downturn and you don't get the spending that's coming in, how do you tighten things up and how do you squeeze more out of what you've got coming in? If you have annuity-based income, that's great, but what are you doing to improve your margins on that? And we can help with those kind of things.
So you've said that it's not just about technology, but change management and adoption. So how do you help your clients actually drive adoption internally once the tools are ready to go?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing we start doing is we look at communication as a strategy. And we say, okay, So when this happens, when we put in the AI tools, what are the things that we need to communicate both to your customer and to your staff, right? How do you train the staff on, hey, we're rolling out this chatbot. What does it mean to you? Right. So you can drive it organically that way. We have incentive programs that we can help create and manage. So, hey, you've done your 10th AI interaction. That's great. You get a $50 Amazon card or whatever, you need to drive it to drive adoption. At the customer level, you can incentivize them too. Hey, by the way, you just ordered, you answered your own question through our FAQ. Here's 10% off, right? A lot of little things like that you can do. But driving cultural change is really important. Understanding that AI is not replacing people, but people who know AI are replacing people. Those are our mantras that we try to walk in with and set the ground rules early, because we don't want that fear, doubt, and uncertainty to come into place, right? We want to be proactive. We want to be welcoming. We don't want to scare off the people that are fearful. People are always afraid of change because they're afraid for their own personal security. And, so we try to deal with all that. And what we found is being upfront about it makes more sense than not trying to entertain it at all and saying, oh yeah, no, this is just new. Go ahead and roll it out. No, we want to get their feedback, and you have to have empathy. That's the other key element, is empathy for what people are going through and experiencing is equally important to process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've heard that phrase that it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's someone that knows AI that's going to
Right.
take the job. And
Yep.
so, yeah, it's important that employees and team members be willing and open to learn the tools, because they are tools. It's not going to fully replace you. It can make you just significantly more productive and
Yeah.
effective.
One of my favorite light bulb moments, and I call it the light bulb moment because you could just see it in their faces when they do it. We do a workshop where we show people how to create a full PowerPoint presentation based on a text prompt using a tool like Pop AI or some other tools that are out there, or even ChatGPT. And when they see the result happening in 15 minutes or less, that they can get a fully polished presentation based on a couple of text prompts, they are blown away. And then when I show them how to check and how to make the edits, they're like, "Oh my god!" When you show them the savings, and I have a meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, no, I'm sorry, Thursday, where I'm actually going to go in and demo to a brand new company. Hey, you want to create a pitch book. Okay, I'm going to show them how to create the pitch book using AI. And when I do that, they're going to take that pitch book and run with it because they're going to build it out and make it fine. And maybe they'll get their funding and maybe they won't. But either way, they have now been educated in how to use that tool, and they won't forget it, because they'll say, wow, I could spend 3 weeks developing a pitch book and refining it, or I could do it in 15 minutes. And, it may not be everything I want, but I'm going to go back and refine it. And I'd rather do that for 3 weeks than, try to create it from scratch again. So it does help in ideation. It helps in all kinds of stuff. And then the other element that is really exciting for me is the multimodal concepts of, having images and videos and the ability to actually create those from text, right? So if you use tools like Firefly or Ideogram or, Discord, like any of the tools, Spatial Discord, any of those are going to help you, you know, imagine it. Like I go to my creative groups and, we deal with people that are writing ads for companies, like their agencies, and you say, "Look, I need an idea. Well, I'd like to have a, old woman who's sitting drinking a cup of coffee, pondering the mysteries of life." And I immediately get an image that I can put that up on and say, "Okay, now let's iterate on that and let's talk about what she's thinking and let's go through it." And it's like they're just blown away by that. And I think those are the kind of things that people can grasp, and they get a hold of it, and then they want to run with it the rest of their days. So that's where the exciting part of AI. That's why AI is sticky, because once you learn it, you never want to stop using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of dev shops and other SaaS companies are trying to move into AI, obviously.
Of
From your
course.
perspective, what separates the ones that are going to successfully implement or productize AI from those that just offer AI as a buzzword?
Yeah, I think, and having seen it in a number of different SaaS platforms and companies, dev shops as well, I think there's a couple of key things to follow. One is you need to be authentic. You need to really understand that if you're building an AI solution, that solution has to be authentic to itself. It has to resonate within the industry or the vertical that you're going after. And you have to make sure that your data is valid, right? You can't garbage in, garbage out. So I think those are critical components. And then I think on top of that, especially if you're a dev shop, you want to make sure that you're adhering to coding practices and best standards that can be traceable, that you have transparency, that you understand what's happening, because these algorithms, they're not as clear as you would think, right? The large language models don't always say what they're doing. So you need, and for transparency, you really want them to cite the sources. You really want them to make sure that you're fact checking this, because you can get bias, and depending on the source code, you really can introduce some fairly large inaccurate things. So we counsel people all the time. It's like, just stop and map it out for yourself first. Like, think about what you're doing and doing it. Companies that won't succeed are the Me Too companies, where they're saying, "Oh, I've seen um, a couple of content management tools that are out there that say, oh, now we have AI. We got a plugin for WordPress. Just plug this in, and WordPress is going to create your content for you automatically."
Mm.
Well, that's not quite how it works. And you may be enamored with it for the first two tests that you run, but after you start trying to use it in production, you're like, holy shit, this is bad news. This is like not going to help me. So, I think those are the ones that are going to fall by the wayside. And I also think that there is a lot of redundancy and a lot of competition that's out there. The cream tends to boil up. And I do think that you can, stay on top of things by reviewing competitor products, by looking at what's out there. Tools like Capterra, tools like Gartner and Forrester help IT leaders decide what are the right tools, what are the platforms I should be looking at, who are the leaders, who are the laggards. And I think that helps as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, as a business right now, what would you say is the biggest hurdle that you're facing in terms of scaling up to be able to serve more clients?
For us, I think our biggest thing is we want to, by design, be small. We're not looking at servicing every company that's out there. Although, I lawfully say, oh, sure, that'd be great. I don't want to be the Walmart of AI. I think for scalability, we are looking for like-minded senior leaders who can be part of a franchise or a model that we can build upon, that makes it lucrative for everybody. Because I'm smart enough to know, look, I'm happy to work with my clients and continue to do that. But I think as we grow, there's a scalability limit. How much can I do? How much can my partners do? So we want to make sure that we understand what our capacity, and then we want to, how do you augment them? You grow by acquisition, you grow by organic growth, you grow by hiring. Those are things that we'll continue to do, but we'll be very thoughtful about it. And we're not looking to do it. Again, we built a model that we know works for our needs right now, which is staying fairly local. We'll cover, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, up and down the East Coast. But, realistically, I know that there are partners I can turn to and call on and give West Coast business to. Do I want to rope that in together? At some point, yes. But right now, I know I'm focused for the next 12 to 24 months, just building up here.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So, just in a general sense, where do you see things going over the next, say, 2 to 3 years? And how much do you think that's going to impact your business? Are you going to be able to scale up faster? Do you think that it's going to become so mainstream that there will be solutions that potentially replace some of the stuff you're doing and make it easier and a little more hands on?
That's good. Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is, I think that as AI demand grows, you'll start to see more commoditization. So you'll see more economical solutions coming to play. You'll see competition. You'll see some leaders emerge. It wouldn't surprise me to see, like the old Intel Inside type of AI lexicon coming to bear for some things. NVIDIA is a good example of, graphics or whatever. I think for us, we're going to be, because of who we are and because of thought leadership, I think we're always going to be at the forefront of, people asking us, hey, what do we think? What do we think? And it's hard to say how that's going to evolve our business. I think in general, I have some thoughts about AI in business in general. I think by 2027, AI will be at least in 30 to 40% of the businesses that exist today. AI and more AI driven processes will be part of that. So when you go out and you do a web buying experience, whether it's at Amazon or whether Etsy or whatever, right, there'll be a much more robust AI journey in your future. I think in terms of in transportation, I think AI will start to help mass transit adoption because you'll have autonomous driving vehicles that will become more pervasive. I think you'll be able to also have advertising and hyper personalized experiences transmitted in the transportation mode so that consumers will be, always done. The analogy I could give you is, the science fiction movie, Ready Player One, where you're totally immersed in a world and you're differentiating between reality and virtual reality. I think that will also expand over the next 2-3 years. Before ChatGPT in 2022, everybody's buzzword was Metaverse. And everybody, that went away, right? People think it disappeared. It didn't go away. It's idling and it's hibernating right now because AI surpassed it in terms of the need and the adoption cycle. But Metaverse is right behind it. And don't kid yourself. The glasses, the Facebook glasses or the Oculus or the Apple Vision Pros, they are still prototypes in my book, but eventually that will replace how we experience things. And your three-dimensional laptop, your television, all these different things will start to, the technologies will continue to advance. We'll start to see other things. The other wrinkle, I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, is quantum computing and what that's going to do to overall AI. So quantum computing, for those on the podcast who don't know, quantum computing changes everything we know from a binary system of ones and zeros to a steady state quantum dynamics. And it allows us to do computations much faster. It also has some technology challenges today in terms of scale and the size that it can handle. But eventually we'll get past that. And I think that will be another transformative step increase for us.
Yeah. And the metaverse point is very interesting because you don't think about what are some of those older technologies, quote unquote, older technologies. It's not like it's that old, that maybe didn't succeed because they were too early, that something like AI could make a
Yeah, it's
huge
uncomfortable
difference
to wear an
and
Oculus
bring
headset
back to
for
life.
an extended period of time. Exactly. It's funny because I looked at immersive technology a while ago and thought about it for field service. Like, if you're going out on and servicing a windmill generator, right? Put on your glasses, your safety glasses that you could still see out in front with, but now everything is coming to you from an AI prompt instruction and saying, turn this to, this torque value, whatever. Like, it could give guide to guide separation. The same thing applies for medical. Like, surgeons will operate with these glasses, right? Remote surgery. So I could be in California operating on a patient in New York. I mean, those are realistic scenarios today that can be done today, but it will get even better as the portability and the human factor engineering comes into place. These things will change. And I think, again, with quantum computing, even beyond that, this will become, and even the launch of AGI, this will become a transformative change for us also in the future. And it's exciting to see it coming. As a futurist, I love this stuff. I just hope I'm around long enough for another 100 years or so to see where, I'm still waiting for the transporter. That's how I look at it. Where's my scrambled molecules? I want to go from point A to point B and never deal with traffic.
I'm sure it's on Elon's to-do list. He's
Yeah,
got all
it
this
might be.
technology planned. Oh, that's great. Well, Ken, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, everything that you've got working on, everything, all your visions of current technology and where we're going. Really fascinating. For everyone listening, if you're thinking about how to build and scale an AI-enabled business, or if you're navigating transformation at your company, be sure to check out Nexus Digital Group. Ken, can you tell people where they can find you?
Yep, you can reach me at ken@teamndg.com or ken@nexusdigitalgroup.net. It's a long word, so I shortened it out for you guys, made it easy. Team NDG is easy, and you can get me there. And I look forward to hearing from anybody.
Great. And if you're running a dev shop or SaaS company and looking to land more clients and scale your revenue faster, let's talk. Again, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and as always, keep pitching, keep building, and keep scaling. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch, Build, Scale. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.